Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm working on an Artist's Choice face-up for a Digidolls Zodiac line faceplate. So when the doll's owner told me to do whatever, the first thing that came to mind was something galaxy themed, because of the doll being from the Zodiac line. But I also wanted to try to incorporate a lot of pink, because I know the doll's owner loves pink, and I thought aiming for a more pastel galaxy would be nice. Since I'd be using a lot of pink, I opted to use a bold purple for eyelashes and eyebrows so they would stand out a little better in the blushing. The purple eyebrows should help unify things, or at least that's my hope. For the eyeliner, I chose a pearlescent pink gouache, and I'm going to keep the eyes really simple since the main focus is going to be the colorful blushing across her cheeks and between her eyes. I couldn't get my first brush to work well for the eyeliner, so I switched to a smaller nail art brush and was a lot happier with how it worked. For the mouth, I chose a slightly darker pink. All of the paints I'm using are gouache, so I'd easily be able to fix mistakes or clean up edges using wet paint brushes. I used purple for the edge of the mouth, just in a tiny thin line to add a little more depth. Then it's time to start blushing. I used purple on the eyebrows and eyelashes first. I used an eraser to clean up, and then I started using pink to lay down the initial cloud shapes for the galaxy. Honestly, this part of the face-up was emotionally challenging. Before doing this face-up, I did a painting using acrylics where I studied nebulas and the different colors and textures. And this is a little different because this is pastels and gouache, and also on a doll and not a canvas. But one thing I did learn from doing the painting first was that a lot of it really comes down to believing in what you're doing and sticking with it, because a good portion of it is just not going to look good at all. For this particular kind of design, I want the pastels to be blotchy and uneven, asymmetrical, even kind of gritty looking in some places, because that's what creates the texture needed. But blushing that onto a mint green faceplate with dark pink pastels is not at all comfortable, even though I spent the whole time telling myself it would get better. With each layer, it was going to get better. In fact, sometimes when it's not blotchy enough, I went back in with a dry magic eraser and brushed off some of the blushing to make sure it was more blotchy. I built up the blushing colors, then painted the teeth before sealing. I layered some pink into the eyebrows to help make the purple pop a little more later by making it a warmer color, but there'll be more purple at the end when the final layers go on. Once the pastels are blotchy enough across the face, I switched to using heavily watered down gouache paint that just gets kinda dabbed on to bring out the shapes forming in the pastel. Going over the blotches a couple times helps smooth them out, and around this time I felt so bad about how it was going together because it just looked so ugly. I didn't know how this could ever end up looking anything like my goal. I incorporated some of the pearlescent pink into the cloud formations so they would shimmer as the doll's head is turned. Then I went in on top of that with some heavily watered down white gouache. The white looks a lot more opaque than it is once it dries, so again, very much a situation where I have to trust the process. And honestly, it wasn't comfortable. I kept looking at this going, oh, she's gonna hate it. There's no way I can save this and actually make it cute. It looks terrible. Nothing is coming together the way I wanted. But I just tried to remind myself that my painting was the same way. I pulled up a photo of the Lagoon Nebula while I worked, reminding myself of where I was drawing inspiration from, reminding myself I had already studied this and practiced what I wanted to do, even though it was in a different medium, and that I'd ultimately been happy with the end result of my practice. So I tried to stick with it, layering more traces of white that would dry more opaque, implying edges of solar clouds. Then I started adding in stars. I'm using them like freckles, knowing the gouache will dry less visible. In order to suit the Zodiac idea, I also decided I would hide the stars of the doll owner's Zodiac sign in the face-up, and you probably won't see it unless you know what you're looking for or where, but they're just a subtle addition to make it a little more special maybe. After all the paint was done, and it was all done on one layer by the way, it was time to go back in with pastel. I added a heavy amount of purple blushing around the clouds to make it a little more spacey while staying pastel, so I never go any darker than a lilac shade. It takes a few layers to build it up, but I think that final blushing really helped the texture stand out and look a little more spacey. I darkened some of the star dots with a white watercolor pencil in some places, and added more stars using more gouache to help draw the space texture out across the rest of the face. In the end, I feel like this doll is a lot cuter in person than in photographs, because there's a lot of nuance to the texture of the pastels and the pearlescent paint that just becomes completely lost in photos. The camera just doesn't pick up light the same way as the eyes, so it's a little lackluster for everyone but me. I didn't have any eyes the right size, but just having some placeholders in helped the doll look a little more finished. If I were to do it again, I might incorporate a little blue for additional depth. But I think the purple and pink is okay, and once this doll is dressed up and has a colorful pastel wig, we'll get a better idea of how well the concept came together. The doll's owner likes it, so that's what matters. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.